Alright, so today I'm going to hopefully do a short video on how I lube my linear MX style switches. You've probably seen a bunch of various videos on how to lube switches, but I'm also a lazy slob, so I have a very particular way I get these done. So in front of me, I have Willis's lavenders that I will be lubing for him, as well as the various tools that I'll need to get this job done. Oh, for instance, Krytox 205 for the switch housing and stem, a flat brush. I particularly like ones that are the same size as the stem rails. We'll need a stem holder, tweezers, JPL 105 for the spring, and a switch opener, as well as a plastic baggie, which I seem to have misplaced, for the springs. And then I also have a set of 63.5 slows and red switch films. So the first step that I do is I disassemble all the switches and I place them in their spots on the lube station. I personally like to have them all face the same direction, but again, that's up to you. Now, forewarning, I do have a somewhat unorthodox and potentially super inefficient way to lubing, but it's just the fastest for me. I get a good dollop of lube on my brush and I dab it on the switch's left side rail. Now you're thinking, why the fuck do you have so much lube on these switches? Great question. I don't fucking know. It just works. I go back over it with the side rails with a flat brush to pull off the excess lube, and it's been working for me as opposed to continuously dabbing back in the Krytox for each few switches. Now once I'm done with the left rails, I just flip the lube station over and then I do the right rails. Once all the bottom housings are lubed, I take the films with some tweezers and I gently place them on each switch. And for the springs, I just toss these bad boys into a plastic baggie, drop some GPL 105, and shake that like my life depends on it, hoping that the RNG in getting these springs properly lubed is better than me pulling for ball or hu-tao. Then I take all these springs and then I place them in their respective spots. For the stems, I grab them with the stem holder, get a little bit of lube, and apply a very thin coat for all sides. You can choose to lube the bottom post if you'd like, but I personally don't. And then after I finish one, I just put on the springs and then rinse and repeat until you finish the whole set. Now once all the switches are done, I grab the top housing and pray that I don't snag the switch film when placing them down. Yeah, but boom, you now have a set of properly lubed switches. They may take a little bit of breaking in to get the lube moved around nicely, but for the most part, they should be good to go. Some caveats to note: you can choose to lube the leaf spring if you want for a linear switch. I guess maybe tactile you can as well. But I personally haven't found a noticeable difference, and it's just extra work that I don't want to do. Also be sure that you don't accidentally throw a shit ton of lube in the center post, because that's going to lead to a switch farting noise, and that's a pain and a half to fix. Also, if you're going to lube tactile switches like the Zelios or Holy Pandas or whatever you're going to use, just be careful to avoid the legs of the stem to not affect tactility. You can play around with how much lube to put on to fine-tune how much tactility you're willing to lose over smoothness, but just keep that in mind. I hope that this video is at least a little bit insightful in terms of how I used to be able to crank out a bunch of switches easily, but nowadays just waiting for stuff to come in. If you find stuff like this helpful, let me know down below. I'll be doing another video in terms of how I prepare stabs. Probably will be even shorter than this, but keep an eye out for that. Thanks. Have a good one.